Season 5 of Warzone and Black Ops 6 is upon us. We have the stadium opened up in Verdansk, new skins and operators, and 2 fantastic new weapons in the PML 556 LMG and the ABR A1 assault rifle. Things are honestly looking pretty great across Call of Duty right now, and the start of a season always seems like a great time to reset, refresh, and check back in with our settings to make sure we're playing at our best. Which is why I'm covering the best controller settings on Warzone and Black Ops 6 right now, starting with the button layout. And for those of you that have watched my videos before, you'll know I'm a huge fan of Bumper Jumper Tactical. This button layout gives us the ability to do all of the different movement mechanics that we need to do in Call of Duty, the main ones being able to dive and jump and crouch and drop shot all seamlessly, and this allows us to do it without taking our fingers and thumbs off the controller, so we can still aim in while sliding at someone or diving around a corner and things like that. So it changes jump and mantling to the left bumper, whilst going prone and sliding is with the right stick. And then you can still throw your stuns and tactical equipment with A or X if you're on PlayStation, and you can still melee and put someone in a finishing move with B or O if you're on PlayStation. Now for some people this might be too much of a change and it might just be kind of annoying. If it's too hard to get used to for you, I recommend just going for standard old tactical. This is very easy to use, pretty intuitive, and you still have seamless control over the diving and sliding aspect. If you do play claw, obviously it's not too much of a problem, and if you do have a paddled controller, it's not so much of a problem either. Then as we come down to stick sensitivity, there has been an update with this where old numbers have now been replaced with newer numbers, which might be a little bit confusing. The reason they did this was to give players more control over their sensitivity and to give more transparency on the effect of their changes. Now thankfully your previously set sensitivity settings should still be in place, but check out this table for reference. So what was a sensitivity of 4, which is the default setting, is now 1.2. A sensitivity of 5 is 1.4, so now we essentially have sensitivity settings in between those previous values. So we can get like 4.5 now, which would be a 1.3. Now hopefully that does make at least some sense to you. So I recommend going anywhere between 1.2 and 1.8, which in old terms would be between 4 and 7. This is the sweet spot for most people. Generally, the higher this number is, the better, as long as you're not missing your shots. But you shouldn't feel too ashamed if you can't play on like 15 or even 20 or anything like that. Many pros play on below 8. And actually we'll come into a setting in a minute that is going to help your aim a little bit more, which can actually allow you to put your stick sensitivity up even higher. But just before we get into the rest of the settings, if you want to unlock the brand new Dark Matter, Abyss, and Nebula camos in Black Ops 6, or grind them extremely quickly in bot lobbies, be sure to check out Mitch Cactus. They're the biggest and most reliable in Call of Duty, which will help you grind out the weekly events, camos, and all the unlocks completely legitimately. You can enjoy highly discounted COD points at up to 80% off. They have over 10,000 verified Trustpilot reviews, and you can use code SPRING for 5% off. Okay, now back to the settings. Controller vibration, it's not a huge deal, but I switch it off. For dead zone inputs, this is where actually a lot of people get confused, and you can make some huge differences here. So with the minimums, whether it's the left stick or right stick or even the triggers, we want these as low as possible, as essentially this gives us the best response time possible. So we only have to move our stick a little bit, and we're starting to get movement on the screen. Now the only issue is with the sticks, if we do put it on 0, you can get stick drift, so where you're not actually touching your controller, and yet your aim is still moving around. Obviously that's not going to be useful, especially when it comes to your aiming. So that's why mine are on 3 and 3 here. That's kind of my sweet spot, so the stick drift is stopped. If you put it on 3 and it's still happening, just put it up a little bit more until it stops. And actually you do have this test function these days, which is very helpful indeed. You don't have to hop into a game and then hop back out and all that kind of thing. Then for the left stick maximum, I recommend putting this down to 70. By doing this, we can get into a full sprint with our left stick even quicker than usual. So instead of going to the full rotation forward 100% to go into that full sprint, actually only 70% of the way is going to do that for us. For the right stick max, I think that's absolutely fine. And then the triggers, put these down to 0. We want super responsive aiming and shooting. Now as we come across to aiming, we have sensitivity multiplier. Now this is what I was talking about just a moment ago, where we can have a big improvement in our aim and actually run our stick sensitivity a little bit higher. That's because I recommend changing your ADS sensitivity multiplier to 0.85. This makes it so when we aim in, our sensitivity is just that little bit lower, making it easier to track opponents and hit our shots. But when we come out of ADS, we've still got that high sensitivity to swing around the map. For aiming advanced settings, we want our ADS sensitivity transition timing on instant, and we want our aim response curve type on dynamic. This makes it so in the first few milliseconds when moving your sticks your aim is actually going to move that little bit quicker than the standard setting before slowing back down. So it can make it so you're absolutely just snapping on your opponents. If you've just changed this and it feels a little bit too much, you can always turn down the slope. And then obviously for aim assist, you want this on. For sprint assist, I recommend putting this on tactical sprint assist. This means that just moving forward on the analog will put us into a full sprint. Then for the other assists here, for mantle and crouch, I recommend putting these off. They don't offer us any kind of advantage, and it's much better being in full control ourselves here, especially the mantling. Sometimes you can accidentally jump up things that you just don't want to, and it can get you killed. For corner slicing, that's kind of personal preference. This is that thing where you're aiming in, and as you come to a corner to look round it, you kind of do that sideways lean. Now there's no tactical or strategic advantage of this, it just kind of looks cool basically. But I've switched mine off as it can be kind of off-putting. For slide and dive behavior, I've gone with hybrid, so I just tap the button to slide, and then tap whilst holding sprint to dive. Now because we have got that sprint assist on the setting above, it does mean that we have to click in the sprint analog, so the left stick, along with our crouch button to do the dive. For parachute automatic behavior, this is one we want to switch off. It's still the case that we can pull our parachute much closer to the ground manually, compared to the automatic setting, which pulls it a little bit higher up. Then mantle cancels reload, you can leave that on. And actually, even the movement advanced settings, you can leave these on standard. You certainly don't want to be auto door peeking and things like that, so we can leave these how they are. And then the same goes for vehicle behaviors. Now for combat, many of these can also remain on standard, but I would recommend changing your armor plates behavior to apply all. This makes it so we just have to press and hold our button once, and it will keep applying plates until we're full again. This just frees us up a little bit more to focus on what else is going on the map. And you can still cancel putting on the armor just by clicking the armor button once more. Again, these couple of settings are just fine on the standard, but for combat advanced settings, we do want to put our weapon mount exit on instant, and then interact and reload behavior on prioritize interact. If you are new, that's going to be one of the absolute key settings to get you moving around the map much quicker. So you just have to tap the button every single time to either open a door, open a chest, pick up a weapon, etc. For sprint cancels reload, I recommend switching this off. Because we've just put the settings on to go into our tactical sprint as quickly as possible, we don't want to be touching left on our analog a little bit and then it just constantly cancels the reload. That's going to be really annoying. In fact, you want to be killing people and then reloading as you're sprinting off somewhere. To cancel a reload, really you want to just YY, and that just refers to change your weapon and then change it straight back. So whatever button you have for switching to your pistol, just double click that and you stop reloading. So they're all the best controller settings right now. If you do want to improve the rest of your settings too, then head over to these videos where I cover the best graphics and audio settings for this season as well.